I'm Sally Mickley, and I work at the Arts Center in Orange, and I'm going to try my best to do a art project at Art at Home. It's going to be clay, and we are going to make a toad house, and I have several examples. Here's one where you can see it. All it is kind of like a little teepee, and with a little door cut out, and what you do is you kind of put it outside next to where it may be a little bit moist in your yard or in your flower bed, and little toads will get in there and hide and get out of the sun. So they're fun to make. And here's another one. This is the only thing glazed here are a tiny little bit inside, little flowers and stuff. So that makes it kind of nice. But I wanted to show you some of the decorations that I did. And with leftover clay, what I did was press things in or make hearts or whatever. And then here's another one, which is a little bit more grounded. It's a little more round, but you can see I put an eye in there, which I don't know why, it's just fun, and different things like that. So here we go. I wanted to start off with something pretty simple, but yet you can find, join along. You can pick up some clay outside the Art Center. There's some right there by the front door. This is a wire clay cutter. So I wanted to show you that, and I have a piece of clay that I've got, and I wedged it so that hopefully there's no air bubbles in it. And I have a table that's been covered in canvas so that it won't stick to my table. So I made it into kind of a square, and I'm actually going to cut it in half. And by doing that, you just take your wire tool and you just press right down, all the way down like that, and then you just finish by cutting through it like that. And now I have two pieces. The other thing I wanted to remind you is when you're not using a piece of clay, always keep it in some plastic so it stays nice and moist for you, so that it doesn't dry up and you can use it to make a second toad house or something else. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to get, first of all, I'm going to pat this down. And I usually just use my hands and pat it down. I hope you can see me doing that. And I'm just going to pat, 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 turn it over, pat, pat, pat. And again, if you watch any of the other videos, if you pat it down too much on canvas, canvas has a rough surface and it will stick sometimes. So you want to pat it or roll it or whatever, and then pick it up and turn it over. So I'm going to get a little roller, and if you don't have a little rolling pin, you can still make this by just keep patting it out. This is a little thick, so I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm turning it, releasing it from the canvas, and I keep turning it. And I'd like for it to get about 3/4 of an inch thick. So if you were to have a ruler, you wouldn't, you just kind of, it's just a little, just slightly slabbed. And that's what we call this. We're doing slab work with clay. I'm going to turn this over again. Get it nice and, I don't want it so thick that I can't work with it. Now see, I have a little hair in there. I'm not going to worry about that. You don't have to pull it out, because once it goes in the kiln, it will burn out from the heat of the kiln. There we go. It's getting where I want it. As you can see, it's moving. Go. And I'm not too worried about it being completely the same thickness. It's better if if you do, but sometimes you just can't get away with that. So anyway, I'm not going to do too much with this. Sometimes I would put something round on it to make it a completely round cylinder, and I don't think I'm going to do that today. And I have this little, well, actually we could use this. I have a little container here. It's a little tall, so maybe I will use this, but you can use anything. You can use bunched up newspaper, in fact, to lay it over. So anyway, what I'm going to do first is kind of lay it over here and see. Yeah, that's okay. I'm not really crazy about that. I want it to be taller up here. So let's see what I can do. I can put, I can probably put this little rag on it. So I'm going to lift it up a little bit. You can use a sponge. So if you see that, so there we go. And then I'm going to lay this on top again and see what I've got. That's better. I kind of like that. So you can see I'm getting that rounded part. And I'm not going to worry about this too much. The other thing you can do, which is easy if you don't have any of those containers or whatever, is I'm going to pat this back out. Show you a different way of doing it. And I'm going to take my fettling knife, clean it off a little bit. It's not clean. Clean it off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, from the top, I'm going to cut down an angle. I'm going to flip this back a little bit, and that's going to be my door. Can you see what I'm doing? Let me turn it around this way so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm flipping it over just a little bit. So it's down that way and it's flipped over. So that way, then I can kind of just bring it up. And I will use this now. You can bring it around and open it up a little bit and see where I'm going with this. And I really don't even like that. So let's see, I'm going to pinch this together again. Let's see. I like the fluted edges where it's kind of flutes out a little bit. Okay, I've decided that I'm going to use some balled up paper, as you can see. And this is going to be my mold or my holder for my clay. I'm going to take it back off of this little thing. You see I'm not being real gentle with it. I have to be there. That's much, much better. Now, the only thing about using newspaper or paper is that paper will absorb some of the moisture from the clay, which is not a bad thing, but is something to be aware of, and your clay may dry out a little bit faster than normal. So I'm going to turn this in. I'm going to pinch these together a little bit. I don't like that so much. So, and then I'm going to pull this down. And I don't mind that. And I'm going to open this door a little bit more. You can kind of fold it over any way you want, but that will be your little door for the toe to get into. So then I'm going to put my hands around the clay a little bit and form it. And if you want to, you can kind of fold that over there too, so it's a little bit bigger opening. So that's more like a little teepee altogether, isn't it? So there we go. So you can see that I didn't do a very, very good job. It's not perfect, and that's okay because the toad's not going to care. But now that fun part comes in and you can decorate it. So again, I'm going to get a piece of clay, the same piece of clay that I cut off, and I'm going to cut off another little slab. And I'm not going to cut off much at one time, a little bit at a time. And this time I'm just going to cut with my knife. And it's going to go down, as you can see, and get a slab of it. There we go. You can see I have a little slab. I'm going to put the other, again, you put it back in the plastic so it stays moist for you, so it's usable. And then I have a bunch of little buttons that I actually glued to corks so that I can use them as impressions. And I have a strawberry and just a little, these are basically buttons. I even have lips, so if you want to put lips on it, or buttons that have that type of thing on it. And I have a little girl. Wish I had a little boy too, but I don't have a little girl. So what I'm going to do is press this out a little bit, make it thinner. And again, you turn it. You don't need much, because what I'm going to do is just decorate, and then I'm going to adhere it to the toad house. Anyway, this is just a little tiny piece, and I'm just going to roll this up like this, and I will probably use this as an accent for something. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to take my little girl. I have put some baby powder in a container, and I'm just going to dip my little girl in there so that the clay won't stick to the button. And I'm going to impress it like this. Hopefully it won't stick. And you can kind of see that it didn't turn out real good. But if I wanted to, I could put little eyes, and I have a needle tool here. I always cover my needle tool with another cork so that I don't get stabbed. So I'm going to put little eyes right here, and a nose, and a little mouth. And you can kind of see now that it looks like a little girl, if you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out. Doesn't have to be real good. I always save my clay. I'm going to leave a little bit around the edges so I have something to attach it to. So you don't have to be in any big rush. Just take your time, think about it, use your imagination, whatever. Now, since I'm going to add something, I need to brush some water, or I need to score it and brush water. Scoring it, I'm going to just use my needle tool, and scoring, all you do is scratch the back of it and decide where you want your little girl to go. Maybe you want it to go on the door, or I'm going to put this on this wheel so that I can turn it around so that you can see it pretty good. So I may want to put that little girl right there, or I might just say, hey, maybe I'll put it down here just for an accent. And I like squishing the edges a little bit, so I see what I mean about that. And all I do is squish down the edges, if you can see, so that it's a little flatter. It's not just so chunky there. There we go. So again, I'm going to score a little bit more so you can see it. Score, 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 and decide where you want it. And I think I'm just going to put it here. So I'm just going to score a little bit here. And all you want to do is have a little bucket of water here. All you want to do is put a dab of water on both the little piece that you're going to attach, and also where you scratched on your toad house. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of water, and I'm just going to put it up here, and I'm going to twist, 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 and you can feel it grab. And once it grabs, you kind of know it's been attached. And then, so it's not so chunky, I just take my finger and kind of go around a little bit and maybe jiggle around, because you don't want to pop it off after or once it's in the kiln. The kiln has a way of shrinking the clay. The clay will shrink about 12%, and in that shrinking process in the kiln, if you were to watch it you almost see it shaking and forming and shrinking, and you don't want it to pop off during that. And sometimes I'll take my little wet brush and I go around the edges and just kind of squish it a little bit. So you can see that. Here we go. So, and again, this is your piece, and you just, do any way you want. So my top here I'm not happy with. So what I'm going to do is try to think of something I can use, and I think I'm going to use this button because I don't know whether you can see it, but it's got lots of little indentations and stuff, and I think it may be pretty good if I put it right on top. And I want to put some, because of all those indentations, I want to put some baby powder, cornstarch, whatever I have available, and I'm going to press again. Press, 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 and this is what I got, which I kind of like that. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to do it more rounded. It doesn't have to be perfect again. Mr. Toad is not going to care. He's just going to be glad to have something to get in and have the sun in, and to be cooler in this hot, hot weather that we will have this summer. So again, I'm going to score it. See, score. Score, score, score. And since I'm going to put it right on top here, I think I'm going to raise it up just a hair. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'm raising that center up just a little bit. So it will kind of stay on top. I kind of like that. Can you all see that? Let me see. See how I'm doing that. All right. So again, what I have to do is score on top. Where's my, yeah. And so I'll score. But since I raised it up, it's going to be more important to score around the edges of it. So I want to know where my edges are. So I'm going to just put a little indentation on top with my needle tool and keep in those lines when I score so that I know where it's going to hit. So again, I take my water and put some water on there, and I'm going to put some water here right around the edges, and then again, what do? We twist, 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 twist until you feel it lock in place. So, and then again, I kind of like pushing down the sides, and actually when it's raised like that, it kind of adds a little bit to it too. So there we go. I'm going to do all that. And now a little trick of the trade. There is a little crack in there, so once it's in the kiln, it will probably release okay, but one of the big problems of putting pieces together on clay, if there's an air pocket, sometimes the air will get hot faster than the clay and it will explode. So to be on the safe side, I'm going to take my needle tool in an inconspicuous place, and I'm going to put a little hole, and I'm going to go right up in there, just wiggle it around a little bit so that the air can escape and the piece won't blow off of that. So I'm going to go up there again, and sometimes you can feel the air pocket when you push it up in there. So I don't think anybody will see, and that will kind of ensure that it's not going to pop off. So anyway, I want you to look at this where this has caved in a little bit. I kind of like it. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. And that. So now I'm thinking, okay, what else do I want to put in there? Do I want to do more buttons and stuff? Or do I just want to take some curly things, like this piece that I just curled? I think you saw me. And I think what I'm going to do is put a little latch here. How about that? And I didn't score that because I dipped it in water. That looks almost like a little horseshoe. And that's going to be kind of like my latch. Can you see that? For my door opening. So since that's like that, then I think, well, I think I might put a little button there so it looks like it's wrapping around the button. So let's see, what could I do? I would like to have a pretty raised button. So I think what I'm going to do is take some of my excess clay, and I'm going to make a little ball and see if I have a cute little button that I can do. And I like this. I like this. It looks like a little flower. And I'm going to impress that into here before I'll put it down on the thing. But I forgot to put powder on it, so I hope it releases. Yep, but it didn't do real good, so I'm going to do it again. So put it back in there, put it down. So don't be afraid to, if something doesn't turn out the way you want it, do something else. So there we go. It's just a little button. I'd like for it to be a little bit different, and that's a little big, so I'm going to cut it way down, and I'll show you what I'm taking, just little edges off of it. Try not to distort the button shape and indentations. So it's going to be, you could use all kinds of things around the house. If you have buttons, sometimes even little Lego type things, if you have things you could impress, and if you use a little bit of cornstarch or something. So that's a much smaller button, and I kind of like that. So I'm going to, if you can see, I'm going to curve the bottom of it in a little bit. I want it to stand out a little bit. So I'm going to do that so that it will kind of puff up. And I think if I do that right here, I think that will look okay. I kind of like that. We'll see. So this time I really do need to score it and make sure that there's enough clay there that there's something to attach to. It's getting a little dry, so I'm going to take a little bit of moisture from my brush and put it right there, and then play with it a little bit more. So you can kind of see I'm smoothing the water around a little bit and bringing that around. And then don't forget, I have to score on my latch. So let's see again, where do I want it? I want it kind of like that. So it's going to touch this part, which is kind of like the horseshoe. So it's definitely going to touch that part. I don't know whether it's going to touch down here, but I'm going to put score marks there anyway. And then I'm going to put score marks on one edge of this, so to match the edge on my circular part of my horseshoe. So it attaches there. And then I'm going to do a tiny little bit on the other side. And I'm going to wet it a little bit. And of course I have to wet this. And I'll wet this. And then I will attach it. And again, I wiggle, 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 wiggle. And I think it feels good. So there we go. Now, I'm thinking I would like to have a little bead or a little ball of clay right there. So I'm going to take a tiny little bit. I think it would add a lot to it. I don't want it too big, whoops, or too small. I think that'll probably do it. So what do I have to do? I have to score it. So little bit. I'm just going to put a little, whoops, got stuff on my thing. Put a little bit, little holes here, and little holes here. Again, this gives the two pieces of clay something to grab to, so that it's kind of like gluing. Now if I can get this thing, and I think what I'm going to do is take my needle tool and place it in there. Does that make sense? There we go. And again, kind of wiggle, 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 wiggle. And it has a little hole, but that's all right, because sometimes the middle of your flower has little pestles. Oops, that's not attaching very well. So let's play with it some. There we go. There we go. Now there's some water around there, and hopefully that will dissipate. I will slurp it up some with my brush. There's a little bit too much in there. And your brush, if you kind of push it around. Don't be afraid to use both ends of a tool too. This end of the paintbrush can do almost as much as the brush part. So it just depends on it. You utilize what you have in front of you. There you go. Now I want this to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to put some indentations back into it. My fingers pressed. So there we go. We have 3 attachments there. So what else should we do? The other thing we can do is just take some kind of scoring tool or something else and go down. Let's see, I have a tool here. This is a, oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it. A Scruffy Toe Tool. It's got little hoops on the end. So when you're taking across clay, it's going to take out some of your clay. So I'm going to go indentations. So you see, it made a little mark in it. Can you see that mark? So I said, oh, I kind of like that. So I may do another one, go a little bit deeper, follow it around a little bit. But don't be afraid to go the opposite way too. So, and you could go around the very top. And keep going around like that. Yep. And if you don't have a Scruffy Toe tool, you could use a toothpick, because that will has a sharp end, and you could do that. You could also use a toothpick for a needle tool because of the sharp end. So there I've got that, and then I could probably do a zigzag just to give it some oomph or some interest that will carry your eye around. So don't be afraid to do whatever you want. This particular one I want to show you, all I did was put jab some little holes in it just to give it some interest and stuff. So you can do that. This one I used a little butterfly that I cut out with a cookie cutter, or I had an embroidery butterfly that I pressed into clay and then cut around it. So you can do that. This is also, I took, with all this squiggly stuff, I took a garlic press and put clay in it and pressed it out, and I got all these squigglies, and I just attached that. And here's the other one that I did squigglies on. So if you have a garlic press and your mom or dad doesn't mind you using it, you can always clean it out. You could do that. Let's see what else I have that I could use. I like using what's at my hands. So I may just press in some of these little buttons. I have this little button, which is kind of fun, and let's see what kind of mark it makes. And I put it in my powder again. I'm going to put my finger behind this little door and press something right here and see if that looks like anything. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but there's a little design there. So I think I might leave that. And let's see. I am going to take something else. This is a hair pick. I don't know whether anybody's still has these around. I use it all the time. So this I'm going to take and just kind of do lots of little swiggles in it, just to give it some character and stuff, and go out. You don't be afraid to do the edges. You know, I'm going to mark this door a little bit and come down here and here. So it's just to give it a little bit of character. You can do anything you want with your piece. Yeah, see, it just kind of looks kind of rough and all that good stuff. Now, I'm going to cut into this a little bit more, just so to give it some texture and some interest. So let's see, we tied back the door with a button, put a button on top. I wish you all were here so that you could give me some suggestions of what to do. If you want to, if you look at this from the Art Center's Facebook page or their website, put a little comment and tell me some ideas, so the next time I make this, I'll know what you all would like, and we can do it that way. Here, I got some more here I'm going to put. So anyway, I think that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to take too much more of your time because I would like for you to go to the Art Center, pick up some clay, and make your own. Now, I do want to, I don't know whether you can see this, there's a little kind of a crack there, and I don't like that. And I think what's happening is because the paper is absorbing the moisture, so it may be pulling it apart a little bit. So a little trick, I'm going to take my paintbrush, dab it in some water, and I'm going to put some water right up in there and smooth that around a little bit and push that together. And I'm going to use the other end of my paintbrush again, and I'm going to put those together. Can you see what I'm doing? I'll show you afterwards too. And I think what I'm going to do is put a little bridge there. Now you're probably saying, okay, what's a bridge? Well, very simple terms. I'm going to cut out a little piece of clay with my fettling knife, and that's all there is to it right here. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be like a leather piece that's going to attach across there, so it gives it some structural integrity. So I'm going to score it on the back side, and I'm going to score it up here, and I have to go out a little bit, if you remember, because it's a little bit longer. And then I'll take my paintbrush, put a little water, and put some water on it, and on the back of my bridge, or you can pretend it's a piece of leather, and you're going to fix this little crack just by that so that it will stay and won't crack anymore. So let's see what happens. Let's see, I don't know whether you can see this, but I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit so that I have a good attachment. And I know that little bridge is going to make sure my door doesn't fall apart in the kiln. And then I'm going to take a little ball of clay, tiny, 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 tiny little piece of ball of clay. You can see that. And I'm going to actually just dip it right in the water. And I'm going to put it in this little hole right here. And I'll show you in just a minute once I get it attached in there. You can probably see it. So I'm going to pat that in and smooth it out a little bit. And the reason why is because there was a little, not really a crack, but a little opening, and I didn't like that. So I wanted to kind of make sure that it's going to stay. And it doesn't look so bad. Let's see if you can see it. Let's see the little dot in there. Okay. So let's see. We'll turn it around. Oh, that's not so bad. I think that looks pretty good. It's firming up pretty good too. I'm going to put a little bit more here and there. There's also all kinds of things you can do. You could, something else you could do, which would be kind of fun, is if I had my words, and maybe I'll do it right here, I will cut out a name tag. Oh, that's something we could do. Where could we put it? We could have put it right over top, but I think what we're going to do is put right here. So all I did was cut out a little piece like that, and I'm not even going to square it off a little bit. I'm going to do the roller pin. So I think what I'm going to do is actually write Toad House in there. I got some alphabet macaroni, and I took out my letters that spelled out Toad House, and I put them on the clay, and I'm getting ready to push them in. And I want to push them in first before I use my there we go, rolling pin, and I will show you. So there it is. It says Toad House. Whether you can see that. Of course, it's backwards up there, but anyway. So, and I think, that's pretty good. So that was kind of fun, and it is an experiment. So I've never done that before. I know people who have done it, and they love it. So we're going to try it, and I'll let you know if it works. I could have also just wrote Toad House in it, but this is an experiment I've been wanting to try for a while, and I thought, well, what better way than to have you guys help me out with that. So we'll see. I'll let you know once I fire it if it does turn out. So I want to make sure it's in there nice and good. I'm going to roll it again. That H is coming out a little bit, so I'm going to roll that again a little bit. Here we go. So what do we have to do? We have to score it. We have to decide where we're going to put it. You know, and I think I'm going to put it at an angle. What do you think? Either an angle like that or like that. But I think like this, because when you open the door, you'll be able to see what it says here. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is to put it kind of right there. So I'm going to mark a little bit with my needle tool where I want it to go and where I need to score it. So I will score it that way. And I want to score it pretty good. There were some score marks in there already because of how I put some decorations in there. And then I want to score it really, really good back here on the back of it, because I don't want it to fall off. And I want it to grab really good and get a good secure hold on it. So that, anyway, so what do? We take our paintbrush, brush a little water here so that it will grab a little bit more, because it's a pretty big piece. And I want to make sure that the water gets in all the grooves. Put a little bit more. And what do? We stick it on there, and we scooch, 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 wiggle, 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 get it on there so that it's attached really, really well. And it, so then, see how I like it. Yep. And I want to take a tool, and this is a good one to do, to get the edges really, really well. And it's just got a little round end on it, like that. You could use just about anything, even a Q-tip. And I just want to kind of go around there and make sure that I've got a good attachment, because it is a pretty big thing and I don't want it to fall off. So I was telling you about the macaroni. The macaroni will actually burn off in the kiln and will leave the indentation of Toad House. So, and that's what I want. So, and again, I'm going to roll it out just a hair. That will help two things. It will help push it into my Toad House itself, and it'll also help attach it to the actual Toad House. So there we go. I think that's all I'm going to do. If you wanted to, you could put a smokestack up there. You could add a lot more buttons or whatever. And there's some little pieces that are balled up. I'm going to wait till it dries, and then I can usually just take a brush and brush those right off. So there we go. Is the Toad House. And I'm going to put it on a board. I like one sheet of paper. I don't like a lot of sheet of paper, because once it will help dry it out. So what I'm going to do is to see if I can take this off the paper. I might be able to. Nope, I'm going to leave it on the paper for a little bit. So let's see what if you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to scoot this down a little bit here, and I will show you the finished product. So once it dries completely, I will put it in the kiln, and I'll let you know if the alphabet burns out like it's supposed to, and go from there. So there we go. Well, you can see that really good. So it says Toad House. That's pretty cute. Anyway, thank you, girls and boys and moms and dads. Have fun. Pick up your clay if you'd like to make this at the Orange Art Center, Main Street, Orange. And let me know if you have any ideas for me, what you would like to see me make next. So if I can do another video, I will. Thanks so much. Have a great day and stay well. Bye.